Want me to call it to order and then kick it to you?
No, I'm chairman.
No.
I'm the chair.
You're live.
Okay. All right, I call this meeting of the Rules Committee in order, scheduled here this Thursday, February 12th, 2026 at 12 noon. We're a little late as a result to our busy early morning schedule. Committee, I see that we have a quorum here of the Rules Committee present. Vice President Salazar, a member of the Rules Committee, has left a proxy as he is currently chairing the Appropriations Committee. Good senators and members of the public, we'd like to start this meeting with reading a statement that the Wyoming Senate unequivocally condemns the practice of distributing campaign contributions to legislators during the legislative session, while measures affecting the donors, clients, or interests are actively under consideration. The integrity of the legislative process depends upon public confidence that policy decisions are made on the merits, based on law, evidence, and the best interest of the people of Wyoming, not influenced by the timing of political contributions. The distribution of campaign checks in proximity to committee hearings, floor debate, or pending votes creates at minimum the appearance of impropriety and risks undermining trust in this institution. While lawful political participation is a protected and important component of our democratic system, the Senate expects all participants in the legislative process, including lobbyists and principals, to exercise sound judgment and adhere to the highest ethical standards. It is the duty of each member of the Wyoming Senate to uphold and enforce these standards in their own conduct and to ensure that the integrity of this body is not compromised by actions that blur the line between advocacy and undue influence. The Wyoming Senate remains committed to transparency, ethical conduct, and the preservation of public trust in the legislative process. That was a statement that your Senate leadership prepared this morning. We wanted to start this meeting off with reading that statement, and the President of the Senate will read it when we adjourn back at 2 o'clock after we conduct this meeting. I think that statement provides the purpose as to why we're here today on short notice in order to review the Senate's rules in order to address the concern that we have seen here in this Capitol of lobbyists and others providing campaign contributions and other type of financial contributions to legislators with legislation pending. So we have before us a proposed rule, Senate Rule 15-9. And it is created to read and say the following as a result of the quickness of this meeting being put together. Want to make sure the public has a chance to review it. If they haven't, I will read it as well. The proposed rule states as follows: prohibition on campaign contributions. No person shall solicit, offer, deliver, accept, or receive a campaign contribution in any area under the control of the Senate, including but not limited to the Senate chamber, the Senate gallery, the Senate floor, adjacent corridors, the Senate lounge, lobby areas, committee rooms assigned to the Senate, and any other areas under the control of the President of the Senate. So this is a draft for this committee to work. I think I failed to call roll call when we first started so I would like to do that now. So roll call, please.
Senator Beitman,
Here.
Senator Guru,
Here.
Senator Rothfuss.
Here.
Senator Salazar,
Excused, left as proxy.
Chairman Nethercott.
Here. All right, good senators. It's my understanding that this particular rule is a joint rule and our House members have been debating and discussing this morning, although that is all I know about those actions. But there are members of both bodies who are currently pursuing a response to this concern and creating a rule. But for the Senate, we'll look at this rule alone. Is there any discussion or questions? Senator Barlow, we will call on you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the Rules Committee. So I guess I come to you in a little different perspective because I was a former presiding officer and having to take up some of these issues about my mic is on, but I'll get closer to it. My apologies. And so I'm gonna bring three things to your attention, I think. One is, please clearly identify what the Senate, the good Senate president's authority are. What are the halls of the Senate? Clearly, and I think that needs to be well understood. Is this a hall of the Senate? Well, technically, I mean, it's often used by the House, but now we're using it. So does this become a hall? I know those are small things maybe, but I think we need to think about what the Senate is, what that space is, and does it include interim committee meetings in an interim when we're somewhere else? Just for consideration. Maybe I'm trying to be too technical, but that's. The second thing I would say is this would be implemented all year round, whether the Senate was convened or not. So during the Shine Frontier Days, I am down here visiting, campaigning, which I may be, and I take a tour through the Capitol, and we're on the second floor, and someone says, "Hey, while we're here, can we get a picture?" And I'm going to hand you a donation. Just if that's in the halls of the Senate or where we might have been convened when we're in session. We're not in session per se, convened in session, but it is certainly halls of the Senate. The third thing, I'll just be very candid, is I received an online donation this morning. And I was sitting in its chamber, and there you go. So does this apply to that? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator. Any questions for Senator Barlow? All right, seeing none. All right, appreciate those comments. Senators, I was fortunate enough to receive some materials concerning what other states have done similarly to this. And my initial research indicates that there are 28 states that have either a rule or a statute that specifically prohibits receiving campaign donations during session. And so that narrowly tailored to address campaign donations during session, as opposed to year round, to Senator Barlow's concerns. That's just a point of interest that I wanted to pass along and share, that the majority of the states in the United States do have prohibitions specifically prohibiting this type of conduct. So further discussion, Senator Guru?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. To the good senator's points, first, as we all know, especially this group knows, this is all have a very parochial view of this building, and every corner of it is under control of someone. The chief executive controls certain areas, the Senate controls certain areas, the House controls certain areas. All we can do is what we can do with the areas that we control. And I think the senator makes a good point in delineating those areas, maybe a little more robustly in this rule. And I think that's a good point. With regard to the point about online donations, what the senator did was he was informed of a donation that came from outside this building, that probably went to somewhere outside this building, and he was informed of it inside this building. I don't think that qualifies. Third, with regard to your information you received about taking contributions during a session, I think that's a separate matter that would be, I don't know if we're going to take that up in this rule or not. Frankly, I'd be against that, because being a citizen legislature and being the fact that we're in session for such a short time, I know that it has happened in the past that outside this building, people have fundraisers during the session. And I think that might have a chilling effect on what we're getting at. Because to me, what we're getting at is this building. This is the people's house. This is where we do our work. This is where we do our legislating. This is where I believe we need to be held to the highest standard. In this building, we need to be held to account for what we do and the actions that we take here. I think this building should be free of fundraising, should be free of anything of the sort. I think we take this leadership and take care of our building, the building that's under our control. And I think we should urge our House members to do the same. And then I think we should go arm in arm to the chief executive. And as a matter of fact, Some of us met with him this morning, and he actually spoke to the issue and said that he does not take donations, solicit donations, and or of any kind inside this building. And so I think we might find that he would be in favor of any type of rule that he could come up with too. So those are my comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further discussion? Senator Rothfuss?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, I concur with my colleague. I think there kind of are a series of different levels of things we need to contemplate, and I appreciate Senator Barlow's delineation, right? He's helped us to clarify and see things a little bit better. In my view, clearly in the chambers, nothing should happen really anytime, in my opinion. That's inappropriate regardless, and probably in the building, I agree with Senator Grew, we can get to that point where just don't do it. And if somebody makes an offering, say that's not appropriate, that's against our rules, let's talk about that somewhere else. We can handle that kind of thing. I would feel very comfortable saying that, we don't do that in the Senate. But we do have the outside of session considerations when nothing's going on, and that does provide us with some questions that we need to consider. We also need to consider, I imagine a committee meeting in Casper as another example in that committee meeting. To me, once again, it would be inappropriate to be engaging in campaign contributions in an education committee or a minerals committee. That the same types of rules would apply. So I think there are some subtleties there about maybe this is in some ways over-inclusive, but in some ways under-inclusive. And I think we have to thread that needle. But one of the things that we should take into consideration is this will be for the rest of this legislative session, and we can work on it and do a better job for later also. But I think it's important that we get this core concept out as soon as possible. I don't think this language is bad. I don't think this language honestly screws anything up, and we understand the spirit of that language pretty well. So I'm fairly comfortable with where it's at now, even though I think we could do better.
Senator Beitman?
Thank you. I agree with all the comments made, and I appreciate the good senator's advice. We'll have to put some deep thought into how we handle the interim and the online donations for sure. But as Senator Rothfuss just said, we need something now to get us through the end of this session. And the appearance of vote buying on the House floor or the Senate floor is absolutely unconscionable, and we cannot allow that to happen. And so this takes care of that, and I urge the members to vote for this.
Thank you, Senators. Good discussion. So I believe that it's not strong enough currently and does actually need to say during session. And I think the concern over in the interim is fair, but for purposes of managing the rule for today, we don't address the interim until we have more chance to review and consider and evaluate. The reason why I say during session and what we're trying to prohibit is what the Senator Beitman just indicated, which is vote buying. And so if somebody wants to have a fundraiser across the street in order to buy votes, that would still be legal under our rules. That is not what this rule is intending to do. So it's easily evaded by someone providing campaign contributions with legislation pending, just off the Capitol grounds. And so if we want to discourage and protect the integrity of the institution and the integrity of our votes, we want to prohibit the appearance and the actuality of campaign donations being connected to in proximation of pending legislation or a vote. And we do that during session. We vote during session on bills that matter. And that's what brought us here today. Certainly prohibiting it within the Capitol is absolutely necessary. I support fully, but I also support adding on during session. So I believe that's important. I think it's a separate issue. And as a member of the Rules Committee, don't think that there's a concern that your online platform randomly received a donation in the same way that any of us could receive a check in the mail. That would not be a violation of the rule. But if you read it carefully, right? No person shall solicit, offer, deliver, or accept or receive a campaign contribution in any area in control of the Senate. So did you solicit, offer, deliver, accept, or receive? Those are the languages maybe we want to look at when it comes to an online campaign contribution or receiving it in the mail without your control. And there's not really an affirmative action of accepting, but you do receive. So again, there's some nuance there that can be discussed, but I think the prohibition of providing a campaign donation with legislation pending is what we're actually trying to prohibit, as well as the integrity of this building and the sanctity of the institution. But I would encourage you to continue to evaluate the need to prohibit campaign donations during session while we're taking votes. I would say that those 28 states that have passed this concept, either in rule or statute, most in statute, connect it to session. It has that approximation element associated with it. Further discussion?
I'm sure.
Senator Rothfuss.
How would you connect it to session? I mean, do you have any alternative language? I was trying to read through and see what might then work to do that. I agree that there's a lot of sensitivity around session and less sensitivity about being on the grounds or nearby outside of session, because you're right. At that point, it's relatively normal. I do still think that the last thing we want at any point of the year is somebody handing out checks on the floor of the Senate, you know, even if it's a random Thursday in July. So this probably captures that better than it captures your concern, which is right out front with a pending vote is probably still worse than a Thursday in a random July, regardless of where you're at. How can we add what you're calling out and also recognize this concern about the receive aspect, where we do know that we will, it's out of our control receiving. It's out of Senator Barlow's control. It's out of your control as to whether we actually receive a random campaign contribution at any given time that we didn't solicit, because it's the nature of those sites. And maybe in other states, they actually shut their sites down, but I can't imagine that's what's happening.
So just a couple of ideas to start thinking how proposed amendments would be potentially. No person shall solicit, offer, deliver, accept a campaign contribution during legislative session as well as some connecting word there, in any area under the control of the Senate. It should neither be an and nor an or. It just needs to connect all together. During legislative session, in addition to any area under the control of the Senate. So you can never give a campaign donation in the Capitol year round. And you can certainly never give a campaign donation anywhere during session. That's the concept.
Yeah.
Senator Guru?
I understand the concept and I agree with the concept. And, you know, when we say about, you know, going out front and accepting a check, this is where you get into the nuance of this is, you know, we do have, and both parties do it, have gatherings during session. I know county parties do it, and I know that state parties do it as well. And I also know that groups of legislators, maybe looking at other offices or other times have had, or maybe even have a PAC or something, have fundraisers during session. And my concern is if we're going to go that route, I think it's something that we need to maybe contemplate and give a little bit of deference towards, because there might be some planned. I don't know, but I think there is a difference, and I worry about that. I mean, everyone right now, and I agree totally with, if we're gonna say this session, we're not gonna do it, I'll vote it. I'll vote for it. But I think what we'll want to do maybe is take a deeper look at it when we get a chance to try to parse it out. Frankly, I don't even know how we can enforce that outside of the building, as far as, you know, I mean, except within ourselves. I don't do it. Or if I get a check in the mail, it's like, if I got a check in the mail that was addressed to the Capitol and it had a check in it, I would just send it back and say, hey, whoever you are, let's talk after the session. That's not in bounds. You don't send checks to the Capitol. I don't have any other address here.
Here's-
So,
Here's some proposed language.
okay.
I mean, to your concern, Senator Guru, and I hear you that maybe in the future we can get to that particular issue. We are in session for 20 days and then 40 days. There are plenty of other days within the year to have fundraisers and to receive campaign donations. So to protect the institution, I'm fine with that sacrifice. Here's how the state of Alaska has written their statute. A legislator or legislative employee may not on a day when either house of the legislature is in regular or special session, solicit or accept a contribution or a promise or pledge to make a contribution for a campaign for the state legislature. There's an exception for the 90 days immediately preceding an election for contributions made outside of the capital city. So looks like they've spent some time thinking about this in Alaska. They have narrowly tailored it for legislative seats instead of other offices that may be sought. There's an exception for a time period immediately preceding. I don't know. I don't understand why this is necessarily there, but they make a distinction of receiving donations in the capital city as opposed to other locations. And this is a statute, so it's not just a Senate rule, right? This is a crime.
I think that's pretty good language.
So you want me to read it again?
Yeah.
A legislator or legislative employee may not on a day when either house of the legislature is in regular or special session, solicit or accept a contribution or a promise or pledge to make a contribution for a campaign for the state legislature. Senator Beitman?
Yeah, do we have a Wyoming Constitution handy? Joey, you have one? Because our bribery amendment or not amendment, the bribery portion of our Constitution has pretty specific wording. Geez, that's in small print. Holy cow.
Here, what you-
All right. Which article
don't
was
need
that?
that.
I couldn't see it. The bribery.
No, it's just small print. You can't read
Maybe
it.
it's 20.
Yeah. No.
You got a pair of cheaters if you need them.
Yeah, I'll find it. Anyway, I think what's in our Constitution is very clear, and it's not just campaign contributions. It's anything of value in exchange for a vote, indirectly or directly. I want to make sure our rules mirror that language. Oh, here it is. Article 3, Section 43. Offers to bribe. Any person who shall directly or indirectly offer, give, or promise any money or thing of value, testimonial, privilege, or personal advantage to any executive or judicial officer or member of the legislature to influence him in the performance of any of his official duties shall be deemed guilty of bribery and punished in such a manner as shall be prescribed by law. So
Did you read that louder or more clearly? Do you need glasses?
I didn't think I did, but man. Article 3, Section 43 offers to bribe. Any person who shall directly or indirectly offer, give or promise any money or thing of value, testimonial, privilege, or personal advantage to any executive or judicial officer or member of the legislature to influence him in the performance of any of his official duties shall be deemed guilty of bribery and be punished in such manner as shall be provided by law.
Senator Rothfuss.
I would say that fully captures our entire campaign finance system. So we may have a problem.
Response?
Not to that, but I just think we've got an issue here and it's a serious issue and we've got to take care of this. So however you want to proceed, Madam Chairman.
Senator Rothfuss?
I do have some language I've been working on. I tried to incorporate Alaska's language, what we've got, and a few other things, and it comes down to two concepts. So no senator shall knowingly solicit a campaign contribution or knowingly accept a campaign contribution by affirmative act within any area of the state capitol complex at any time. No senator shall knowingly solicit a campaign contribution or knowingly accept a campaign contribution by affirmative act on any day during which the Senate is in regular or special session. We could also add committee if we wanted to that, but that might be sufficient for now, and the committee might complicate things. So those two sentences together, yep. No senator shall knowingly solicit a campaign contribution or knowingly accept a campaign contribution by affirmative act within any area of the state capitol complex at any time, probably Wyoming State Capitol Complex. No senator shall knowingly solicit a campaign contribution or knowingly accept a campaign contribution by affirmative act on any day during which the Senate is in regular or special session. And that very specifically then excludes Senator Barlow's concerns.
Senator Brightman.
I think we're getting there, but to me, that puts a lot of the burden on the senator. What about the person
Okay.
offering what I would consider a bribe or a buying of a vote or extolling their virtues?
I'll look at tweaking
Via
it for that,
check.
Mr. President. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, I was kind of leaning on the Alaska approach there, which goes to the senator, but you're right.
That person needs to be.
Yep.
We have to have, the presiding officer has to have the ability to remove offenders that aren't legislators from this body or from this building. We have a few ideas.
Yeah, why don't we reconvene when there's more time? So is there a direction that we want to agree to go on right now? Consistent with Senator Rothfuss's language with an addition to authorize the Senate President to remove offenders?
Madam Chairman?
Yes. We need an LSO staff member.
So it probably comes together just changing the first sentence such that it's no person, and then the second one would be no senator. So it would then read, no person shall knowingly solicit, offer, deliver, or knowingly accept a campaign contribution within any area of the state capitol complex at any time. So that covers everybody. And then no senator shall knowingly solicit a campaign contribution or knowingly accept a campaign contribution by affirmative act on any day during which the Senate is in regular or special session. So that provides full coverage. And that would then, outside of the Capitol, where we don't have the grounds. If somebody tries to make the offer, there's not a heck of a lot you can do about that. So I think this appropriately gets at that.
Senator Guru?
But Madam Chair, with what I just heard, I don't know if that got to President Beitman's needing to have some sort of regress to kick someone out of the building or remove someone in the building who's doing it. It says they can't, but it doesn't give it, or did I miss here?
Let me direct that to maybe Ian or
Yeah.
Ellen. Do our
Uh,
rules provide for a violation of our rules to allow for the
Yeah.
removal of someone for a violation of any of the rules, not just the rules that say we can? I believe that's the case.
Madam Chairman, I believe they certainly do allow the presiding officer to remove someone who has violated the rules or otherwise shows a lack of decorum from the chambers or any place within the president's control.
Yes, I agree, Madam Chairwoman, with Ian's assessment there that the president has the inherent authority to maintain decorum, and anyone in violation of those rules could be asked to be removed.
Senator Barlow?
Madam Chairman, I'm certainly not an expert as the chief. I'm certainly not an expert like the two folks here, but the wording that was offered by the good Senator Rothfuss is the Capitol complex. And I'd respectfully say that is well beyond what we would generally consider presiding officers' authority. Certainly the halls of the Senate and the halls of the legislature is much different than the Capitol complex. Just ask you to consider that nuance.
Senator Rothfuss?
And to Senator Barlow, it's a struggle to provide that delineation as well as to map it out. I mean, I actually prefer the idea of it being in those areas under control of the Senate president from our rule standpoint. But as you pointed out in your first concerns, nobody knows where that is. I don't even think the good Senate president who has control could tell us right now where he has control.
We're on the wrong side of the hall.
So it becomes a challenge then if you're a senator that's trying to operate within that. If you're in the Capitol complex, I think we know where the Capitol complex is. And that might provide more clear delineation. But the other aspect of it, I mean, we could say main legislative building and the connector, but we would definitely not want that type of behavior in this room, for example. So I guess I'd ask what would be the right venue then, if not Wyoming Capitol Complex?
Ms. Thompson, I think, has some answers.
I'm not sure, but I'll try. Madam Chairwoman, I did find under the duties of the president, so it's Senate Rule 2-2F, says he shall have the regulation of such parts of the Capitol and its passages as are or may be set apart for the use of the Senate and its officers.
The passages of the Senate, we declare them all.
It's a coup, it's a
So I think the question then becomes to provide some clarity to the reader of the rule is to either refer back to that rule or to provide the delineation that is currently before us so that it's explicit and clear for those areas. And then we could also, the proposed rule says any other areas under the control of the president of the Senate. So it encompasses what's currently in rule. So the wisdom of providing clearly prohibited rules, right? Clearly prohibited areas so that there's a clear understanding of what is and isn't allowed may be prudent to include that list as currently proposed. I mean, I agree. I would love to take full control of the Capitol complex and think that that's the right move, and I vote aye.
Well, there's an open office next year for that.
I think, I think that matter is always in dispute between the executive, the House, and the Senate. So maybe we stick with what is very clear and already in our rules.
Madam Chairman.
Senator Rothfuss.
What was the rule reference? Senate rule?
Ms. Thompson?
The locations, I'm sorry,
Yep.
Madam Chairwoman and Senator Rothfuss, 2-2, duties of the president, paragraph F.
2-2F, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So, Madam Chairman, that would then read, no person shall knowingly solicit, offer, deliver, or accept by affirmative act a campaign contribution within any area under the control of the President of the Senate pursuant to Senate Rule 2-2F at any time. And then the C paragraph is no senator shall knowingly solicit a campaign contribution or accept a campaign contribution by affirmative act on any day during which the Senate is in regular or special session. And those two probably, I mean, they definitely give us a lot of coverage in the way that we've talked about. You could probably loophole it, but you'd have to struggle.
Why don't you read it again slower, more clearly?
No person shall knowingly solicit, offer, deliver, or accept by affirmative act a campaign contribution within any area under the control of the President of the Senate pursuant to Senate Rule 2-2F at any time. And then C, or the next paragraph, my apologies. No senator shall knowingly solicit a campaign contribution or accept a campaign contribution by affirmative act on any day during which the Senate is in regular or special session.
I find that satisfactory. Mr. Shaw, comments? So one thing is maybe some clarity as to who is here to help us and how. Mr. Shaw?
Madam Chairman, I'm certainly here to help you and I can draft whatever we decide is the final language. If it was the committee's preference, I can certainly put that into words and then bring it before the committee for a final vote if that's your preference.
Would it be permissible for us to vote now and you put it into words?
Certainly, Madam Chairman, I can do that. Yes.
Does the committee feel comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Senator Guru?
Yeah, I think that if we do it in concept, that we ask Mr. Shaw to draft it up, and then we take a final look and do a online vote as to make sure we got the language correctly and get it done as soon as possible. I think that would be fine.
We'll have to schedule another meeting. So recognizing that there's the will of a body member to not vote on it today, we will direct that it be drafted and schedule another meeting with that particular language. So Senator Rothfuss, would you like to read it again for Mr. Shaw? Mr. Shaw, do you have that language?
I'll send it to you.
And so with that, we will not take a vote, understanding that I've heard from all of you that it's your intention to move that particular language forward, ask for a bill draft to read it and review it more carefully, and then at that time we'll take a vote. Any further comments before this meeting is adjourned? Senator Guru?
Yes, and then at that point, then it would also be able to be published and then maybe even take public comment if we needed to.
It's a rules committee, but
Right?
yes, yeah.
Sometimes that's good.
Yep.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Shaw?
I might also remind the committee that although will be the recommendation of the Rules Committee, of course, it will also become for discussion and available to the entire body, at which point you could amend that if necessary.
That's right. So recognizing our limited time frame, want to move quickly. So I will work with staff and look for another notice, scheduling another rules committee meeting in order to have the final vote on the proposed language. Okay. Further discussion? The meeting's adjourned.